Goldie made a reckless bet with her friends. She tossed an expensive watch into the swimming pool, daring my dad to retrieve it. They wagered on how long it would take him. But after my dad dived in, he never resurfaced. When they found him, he was still clutching that watch in his lifeless hand. Tears streaming down my face, I called Eva, demanding answers. Her response chilled me to the bone. Did your dad get the watch? I bet $1 million on this. You can't let me lose. Rage coursed through my veins, making my whole body tremble. After laying my dad to rest, I walked away without a backward glance. Eva's desperate pleas for forgiveness fell on deaf ears. I'd vowed never to return. 3 days had passed since my dad's funeral. Eva never called again after that day. She was too wrapped up in her wild parties to spare a thought for me and my dad. In the early hours of the morning, I dragged my exhausted body back to the villa. The moment I reached the door, I was assaulted by bright lights pouring from inside. As I pushed the door open, deafening music and shouting hit me like a physical force. There was Eva, the center of attention as always, Neil perched on her lap. Their lips were locked in a passionate kiss. I stood frozen, watching the scene with a cold detachment I didn't know I possessed. Suddenly, someone spotted me. The music cut off abruptly. An eerie silence fell over the room. Everyone's expressions were a mix of shock and awkward surprise. Eva seemed to sense the change. She glanced up at me lazily, her hand still casually resting on Neil's waist. She made no move to push him away. You are back, she said, her tone as casual as if she were commenting on the weather. Neil nestled closer to her, his lips curving into a smirk. Seth, it's just a bit of fun. You don't mind, right? Just a bit of fun? Those words echoed in my mind, a stark reminder of how little I meant to them. How insignificant my dad's life had been in their eyes. In their world, everything was a game, even life and death. I felt the fire ignite within me, a rage so intense it threatened to consume everything in its path, but I held it in check, letting it simmer beneath the surface. Seeing my expression, Eva's face darkened, her brows furrowing in annoyance. Sensing the tension, someone quickly changed the subject. Seth, did your dad get the watch? That's a limited edition. I bet my sports car on it. If I lose, I'm not backing down. This was Neil's idea. He really knows how to have fun. Laughter erupted around the room. Was it fun? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, yet somehow cutting through the noise. My gaze, filled with hatred, swept across the room. Ivana leaned forward, straining to hear. What did you say? I gritted my teeth, each word dripping with venom. I said, was it fun to toy with my dad? Did you enjoy watching him struggle while you all laughed? When my dad jumped in, they stood by the pool, laughing hysterically. They refused to tell him where the watch had fallen. He looked so lost and confused in the water. When he didn't surface for a while, they got bored and left. No one knew that minutes later, my dad got a leg cramp. He struggled briefly before going still. When I arrived after the housekeeper's frantic call, my dad was pale and cold. His hand still clutched the watch Eva had dared him to retrieve. I cried until I had no tears left, but it couldn't bring my dad back. I'd been with Eva for 3 years. I knew she loved to party, that she could be reckless when caught up in the moment, but I never imagined she'd be cruel enough to gamble with my dad's life. What did my dad and I mean to her? If she truly cared about me, how could she treat my dad's life as just another game? When I confronted Eva, her face darkened. Are you crazy, Sienna? Have you lost your mind? Neil, still nestled in her arms, blinked innocently. Come on, Seth. Is your dad really that precious? Can't he take a joke? Exactly. He's just a housekeeper. Don't act like he's Eva's father-in-law. Rage boiled in my chest. With tears in my eyes, I shouted, this isn't a game. Who do you think you are? My dad's life isn't your plaything. Everyone was used to being pampered and spoiled. I'd always felt inferior around them, never daring to raise my voice or speak out of turn. So when I suddenly lost my temper, they were all taken aback. Anger flashed in Evan's eyes. Seth, watch who you're talking to. Have I been too lenient with you? Lenient? I laughed bitterly, tears streaming down my face. Your kindness is too much for me to bear, Ms. Gould. For 3 years, you summoned me at will. When you were happy, I got a smile. When you weren't, I was tossed aside. Back then, if she hadn't been trying to spite her mother, the great Eva Gould would never have chosen someone like me as her boyfriend. She called me her boyfriend, but to her and her friends, I was just another servant. Eva finally noticed something was off. She stared at me, suddenly taken aback. I hadn't eaten or slept in days. My eyes were red and swollen from crying, and I'd lost so much weight I looked like I might collapse. For a moment, Eva's expression softened. After a long pause, she pushed me away and spoke in an uncharacteristically gentle tone. All right. I'll admit I was wrong this time. I'll apologize to your dad if that's what it takes. Is that good enough? Apologize? You should apologize to him. All of you should, I said, my gaze sweeping across the room. You are all murderers. You should go to hell and apologize to him there. Everyone was stunned by my accusation. Seeing that I wouldn't back down, Eva's stare darkened again. Seth, are you done? Is it worth ruining everyone's mood over something so trivial? I said I'd apologize to your dad. What more do you want? What did I want? I wanted them all to pay for my dad's death. Neil, angry at being pushed away, glared at me and approached with a mocking smile. If that's not enough, count me in. I'll apologize to him personally. How's that for sincerity? He leaned in close, his smile turning cruel. It's too bad you weren't there that day. Your dad thrashed around in the water for so long, panting like a dog. It was quite entertaining. I knew he was trying to provoke me, but I couldn't hold back. With a furious cry, I grabbed his hair and started slapping his face wildly. No one expected me to lash out. They stood frozen for a few seconds before rushing to pull me away, pinning my face to the floor. They'd always disliked me, and now they had the perfect opportunity to kick me while I was down. Are you crazy? Neil said he'd apologize to your dad. Why are you hitting him? No wonder you're a maid, Seth. You have no class at all. Are you just going to let me get bullied like this, Eva? I can't stand by and watch this. Even if Seth was your boyfriend, you need to give us all an explanation for what happened today. Eva didn't disappoint them. She walked toward me slowly, her eyes filled with an icy coldness that chilled me to the bone. Eva stopped in front of me and let out a short laugh. Before I could understand what that laugh meant, she kicked me hard in the stomach. I went pale instantly, curling up in agony. A searing pain tore through my gut. I clenched my jaw, refusing to cry out in front of her. Seeing me writhing on the ground in a cold sweat, Eva showed no trace of tenderness. Her voice was as cold as ice when she spoke. I gave you an inch, and you thought you were somebody important. You and your dad are just dogs I keep. When I'm happy, I throw you a bone. When I'm not, you better know your place. Understand? I was in too much pain to speak, but a deep sadness welled up inside me. This was the woman I had loved for 10 years. I first saw Eva when I was 15. My dad worked as a housekeeper for the Gould family. The first time I met her, I nearly got hit by the soccer ball she was kicking. I fell back, startled. She ran over to me. The sunlight illuminated her beautiful face, and I was mesmerized. Her smile was mischievous and charming. In that moment, I fell in love with her. After that, I followed her around like a stalker, silently watching her from afar. I thought these feelings would stay buried in my heart, never seeing the light of day. But in my sophomore year of college, her family pressured her to go on arranged dates. She didn't want to, so she asked me to be her boyfriend. I'll never forget that day. I was overwhelmed with joy, unable to believe what I was hearing. Even though I knew she didn't really like me and was just rebelling against her family, I still agreed to be with her. Mrs. Gould was furious. She kicked my dad and me out, but Eva took us in at her villa. I thought that eventually, I would win her heart, that she would fall in love with me. Later, she met the girl from the arranged dates, Neil. Their similar backgrounds quickly brought them close. She introduced Neil to all her friends, went everywhere with him, hugging and kissing him openly, completely disregarding me as her boyfriend. In their social circle, I was a joke. No one believed we would end up together. Our relationship began with a mistake, and now it was finally over. Unable to get up from the pain, I stared hopelessly at the ceiling. Eva, let's break up. From now on, I never want to see you again. Eva froze for a moment, then she spoke coldly. We can break up, but you hit Neil. I want you to kneel and apologize to him. I just stared at her, my eyes clearly showing refusal. Neil's face was already swelling up. Eva glanced at him, her anger intensifying. I'll give you one last chance. Will you kneel or not? I continued to look at her, a mocking smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. My attitude completely enraged her. Eva narrowed her eyes. Looks like you need a lesson to remember your place. With a nod from her, the group of young women rushed at me, punching and kicking. She stood to the side, holding Neil, watching with icy eyes. It hurt so much. For a moment, I thought I saw my dad coming to get me. Only when I coughed up blood did the blows cease. Eva crouched in front of me, her expression arrogant. She spoke as if granting a favor. Now do you know your mistake? I forced a smile, weakly then croaked, the biggest mistake of my life was falling in love with you. Eva's face darkened. Who do you think you are? I can have anyone I want. Why would I care about your love? If you're not dead, get up and get out of my house with your father. No need to tell me. I'm leaving now. I struggled to my feet, feeling like I'd been run over by a car, too sore to even lift my arms. After a few steps, Eva suddenly called me back. Didn't you hear me? I said, take your father and get out. I paused, fighting back tears. Don't worry. My dad is already dead. You'll never see him again. Neil rolled his eyes disdainfully. Come on. Even if you don't want to leave, there's no need for the act. Maybe if you beg Eva, she'll let you stay. I let out a scornful laugh, not wanting to say more to them. I had only come to collect my dad's belongings. I never expected to run into these lowlifes. Seeing me walk away without looking back, Eva coldly spat out, whatever trick you're trying to pull, you and your father must leave today. I'd said what I needed to say. It was up to her whether to believe it or not. Eva didn't say anything more. She picked up her phone and made a call. Butler, make sure Mr. Ward packs his things and gets out today. He's fired. The butler on the other end was silent for a while. Then he said, Miss Gould, Mr. Ward passed away 3 days ago.